why some people will be removed. شو قصدهم some people will be removed. Okay, you're sharing to everybody. الكل شايف السكرين تبعتي يلا؟
Yes. يا شايفينه.
Okay. And last time we covered until this slide basically, and I was talking about basically that we have many threats that also impact research in our country. And that includes, for example, the walls, ethnic cleansing, 500 plus Palestinian villages and towns were depopulated. For example, one of those villages depopulated in the Naqab had a guy by the name of Salman Abu Sitta, who is a preeminent scientist now, who is a political geographer. He works out of London now. But you can imagine if his family had stayed, he would be doing the research in Palestine instead of doing it as a refugee in London. So we have a lot of challenges, and of course we have resistance, and this resistance, we pay a heavy price for it. So 100,000 people were killed, 800,000 were injured, over 1 million were detained or imprisoned. And I noticed in the last recording, this thing at the bottom is showing, so I remove it. But anyway, resistance to me is actually many, many things. And doing research is a form of resistance. But I say also creating communities, doing actions like agriculture, like having hope, like even getting married, producing children, like eating, enjoying life. All of these are forms of resistance, especially in the colonial, anti-colonial struggle. ليش؟ لأنه in the colonial, anti-colonial struggle, of course, the objective of the colonialists is to remove the native people. So كل شيء بنعمله هون لما أنا بشتغل معاكم هلا وبنعمل محاضرة وبنحكي وندردش, this is also a form of resistance. فكل شيء بنعمله هو نوع من resistance. وحكينا إنه knowledge is power, but knowledge is also survival. As you know, we face many threats as humans, environmental threats, nuclear weapons threats, wars, conflicts, كل الشغلات هاي. And if I know how to deal with them and I know how to manage them, that's research basically. Here's a quote from R.J. Burroughs at the bottom, which I think is very accurate. There are at least 4 distinct paths to imminent, that is within 5 years, human extinction: nuclear war, biodiversity collapse, already well advanced and teetering on the brink, and deployment of 5G technology, which just commenced, and the climate catastrophe. Needless to say, each of these 4 paths might unfold in a variety of ways, and then he goes on to describe those ways. Here is one of those, is climate change, as you know, and you can see this is expected temperature change, with the blue meaning very little temperature change, white, and then to the dark red, which is the most severe change in temperature globally. And you can see العالم العربي, the Arab world, is really in trouble, being at the center of this effect of climate change. Here is Palestine and Jordan, and we expect increase in temperature of 2 to 4 degrees and decline in rainfall of 20 to 25 degrees centigrade in the next 3 decades or so, 3-4 decades. Here at the museum, we did some projects related to this. For example, we did these posters that looked at the problems and the solutions for climate change, what causes them, and how we can, as humans, affect the change. And this is of course, research is part of this. You have to do research. All of this is done in the context, and I think research nowadays is different than research 200 years ago. 200 years ago, as you saw from the experiences I given you last session on Saturday, that research was done based on the curiosity of the person and whatever, and Darwin with evolution about birds or whatever, the apple fell, didn't fall. Nowadays, most research is focused on what we can broadly define as sustainable development. Sustainable development is a term I do not necessarily like, because sometimes I think you don't even need development. You need sustainability, but not development. Development to me is like a capitalist word, إنه لازم يكون في تطور لإشي أحسن ومش عارف إيش technology, all of this stuff. But in any way, that's a term that most people now use as SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And the United Nations came up with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which you see here, like no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, etc., gender equality, and so on. These were approved by the majority of countries, and Palestine is no exception, as Palestine is now considered the state, at least a non-observer state in the UN. They get to approve conventions and sign agreements, and signed an agreement that they, as Palestine, as the state of Palestine, we will adhere to these sustainable development goals. يعني هاي بتصير الجولز تبعتنا كفلسطينيين يعني. اللي حكيته بالبداية إنه research is focused on these things. So you can think of, let's ask a question, for example, if I want to do research on tourism for your thesis, where would this fit? In which sustainable development goal does research for tourism fit? And guess which ones. أعطوني أرقام مثلا. Which one of these 17 SDGs would the research on tourism, let's say in Bethlehem, fit?
15 and 16. I think maybe a lot of them, but the most important for the political situation here, maybe 15 and 16.
Okay, why do you say 15? Let's start one at a time. 15. Why would 15 be?
Because I think tourism can help to improve the life on land, as countries to promote for their tourism. They can keep the earth clean and save the animals and give a better life for people who live in the land and keep it clean. So that's one reason of the things that governments work when they have tourists.
Okay.
For me,
16. Can somebody say something about 16? How would that relate? Peace, justice, and strong institutions.
Yes, I think tourism can promote for peace on everywhere, not just Palestine, but especially Palestine because it's sensitive situation.
Okay. Anybody else now want to pick another number and explain why tourism might fit under that?
I think 8 and 11.
Okay, let's start with 8.
8 because it has an economic development aspect. So
tourism contributes to the economic growth
yes.
and well-being of a country and gives work to people employed in tourism. And 11th?
11th because it's also tourism has to sustain cities and communities in a way that it reserves its cultures, it reserves its well-being.
Okay. Anybody else with other numbers?
I think number 3, also 8 and 3.
How is tourism going to contribute to good health and well-being?
Well, from the income that we generate from the income and the currency, this will help the government to build hospitals and to take care of the health center. Also, it will be good for the well-being of the local people because they will generate a lot of a good profit from, especially from the alternative tourism.
Okay, but I mean, if the tourism, the idea is tourism brings money and money can be used for all 17 items. It can be used to alleviate poverty, it can be used to alleviate hunger, it can be used to spend on gender equality, on all of these things. So I think that's a very general, not specific from that issue. That's just availability of money you're talking about.
Yeah, first I think it's 8.
So
And then
I think we need something more specific.
Okay.
That relates to tourism, not just, I mean, one can argue that if oil, for example, if we discover oil in Palestine, how is that, which of these sustainable development goals would oil contribute to? Well, it contributes to everybody, everything, because we would have money, but that's not specific to the issue. In fact, oil might result in damage to the environment. Money can also result in damage when people get used to money and things like that. So let's focus on more on the specifics of tourism. Tourism itself. Can tourism, for example, can we have health tourism, for example? Is that a possibility?
Yes. For
You know
example,
what I
green
mean
tourism.
by health tourism?
For example, like green tourism, or if sometimes if like people go to Jordan to get like medical help. But
That's
if we
medical,
have
what they call medical tourism. Jordan is becoming a medical Mecca, basically, for people from the Gulf or others to come and get medical treatment in Jordan.
yes,
So
but they do.
and well-being is things like, you know, the well-being psychological or well-being physical. You know,
I think tourism can help in the physical and psychological way because people get to know more and they learn more, so they start to take care of themselves and become more healthy, have healthier traditions.
so having tourists here, for example, might give people more pride, more self-esteem, more empowered to clean up their environment, for example, or whatever. That's and that way they can have well-being. Tourism can protect sites. For example, as you know, then the recognition of Church of Nativity and Wadi al-Makhrur as World Heritage Sites helps to protect them. And that's related to tourism. They would not be recognized as World Heritage Sites if it was not for tourism. Okay, other numbers other than those that we mentioned so far? No? Hello?
We didn't mention the quality education, number 4, or we mentioned it?
Nobody mentioned it. How can tourism contribute to quality education?
Sure, education is the change of every, يعني, it's the development of every mind in the human being history. The education is always related to everything, especially, يعني, we can relate it to anything, يعني, also to tourism. يعني, the proper education, to have an equality education, so we will help to develop tourism in the country, or to help
the question was the reverse, Aziz. The question was the other way around. How is tourism contribute to quality education? Not how quality education contributes to tourism, or how gender equality contributes to tourism. It's how tourism contributes to gender equality, or tourism contributes to quality education. So think again.
I think number two about the zero hunger. I think when people start to work with the tourism and the increasing in tourism, people will have more money, so people stop being hunger.
Okay, so one and two, basically, both 1 and 2.
Yeah, one and two are related. If there is more increasing in tourists coming,
more income, more
prosperity, there will be available works for other, and the income will increase.
Okay, but outside of income, can you think something outside of income that tourists can help in reducing hunger? Not necessarily by giving money or by bringing money.
By helping people.
We can involve local people more in tourism, especially in the remote areas. Like, for example,
yes, but that contributes economically. أنا بسأل غير الايكونوميك aspect. انسى موضوع المصاري. افترض التورست بيجوا ما بيصرفوش ولا كرش من مصاريهم ولا بيساعدوا ماديا في اي شيء. هل ممكن وجودهم يساعد في reducing poverty and reducing hunger without spending a penny, without any money? Forget the money issue.
No, if they don't spend money, that's an issue.
So you cannot think of a way they can help?
Maybe they can give their solidarity.
So wait. For you guys, tourists, basically the only value of tourists is money. They bring money.
Of course not. We have the volunteer tourism.
Okay.
One of
expand on this.
So the volunteer tourism, they used to come here and help people and give them, work with people. This is a very good example. They don't spend a lot of money here, but the local community get they get a lot of good things from them. So not only spending money is the main.
It's their volunteerism, their help. For example, if they come and volunteer in a farm and they grow vegetables and fruits, they are not providing money, they are providing labor, time. Okay? Other than labor and time, what do tourists can bring you to help alleviate poverty or help alleviate hunger, again, without money?
They can give us new ideas or new way of thinking to open new projects, maybe sustainable projects like planting new trees, like producing new products, something like that.
So basically, if I summarize, tourists bring 3 things so far. They bring money and spend money. They bring time, volunteerism if you want to call it. And third, they bring knowledge, technologies that can help the local people deal with hunger, poverty. There's 3 things so far. Anybody want to add a 4th thing, or shall we move on?
Yeah, I think
the 3 things because I didn't hear it well.
Well, I mean, knowledge can be training. They can train people. That's knowledge. Volunteerism, they can come and help They can volunteer, teach our students, or teach farmers how to grow more vegetables or whatever. And they can also bring money. Those are the three things we talked about. What else? Tourists are not just a cash crop.
They can help us in preserving our culture and heritage also. And spread it worldwide also.
How would they do that? How would they help
Maybe
you?
we can join a scholarship with other universities or organizations outside the country, and we can spread our ideas and culture and heritage and so on.
بس كيف هذا بيعمل contribution poverty reduction or hunger?
They can promote peace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peace can be a solid infrastructure for poverty alleviation, for example. Like what was happening in Bil'in, for example. The solidarity of the tourists there, the international tourists. They can open the world's eyes about what's happening in Palestine, for example. Also, that's why it goes also for quality education, because globalization is all about tourism and touristic activities. So I can raise education through the let's say the interconnection of countries, tourists or whatever.
طيب أنا بدي أرجع ألخصهم. So tourists can contribute in one of four ways so far. One is economic, second one is knowledge, third one is time, volunteerism, and the fourth one is promoting peace, which can bring us closer to alleviating our poverty in Gaza or elsewhere, siege on Gaza, lifting the blockade, كل الشغلات هاي. Any fifth item على السريع بس أعطوني كلمة بلاش long answer.
We all talk
something
about
something with an example, a quick example for it can help clarify it, but you don't have to talk about details.
Doctor, about the positive impact of tourism on our societies, but we didn't talk anything about the negative also impacts.
Yeah, we will come to that. بس احنا هلا في إطار sustainable development goals and how, which means positive, and we are looking at how the tourism contributes to all these elements of sustainable development goal. There is not one of these items, by the way, that tourism cannot contribute to if you think hard about it. For example, take clean water and sanitation. I can say I had tourists who come here who helped us by knowledge transfer about clean water and sanitation and helped us in this area. But there was one word that passed, and I want to give it a number 5 so that we can move on. Number 5 as a category, positive contribution of tourists to the Sustainable Development Goals. Something we always forget, by the way.
The gender equality, you mean, about number 5? Tourists, when they come, maybe our mind will be growing like them. So,
but how would they do the same thing for everything else? We said knowledge, that falls under knowledge. Matan Biju say, yeah, and they bring us knowledge about gender equality. I want you to be more specific. What are they bringing us to bring gender equality? They can either do it through economics, they can either do it through knowledge, they can either do it through time volunteering, or they can do it through promoting peace and equality. That's 4 items that can bring gender equality. All 4 items contribute to gender equality. Is there a 5th item they can do to contribute to gender equality?
Yes, I think to open more opportunities for women as well as men, for example, because we don't have lots of opportunities here to open organizations like the Arab Union and so on, maybe.
So opening organizations, but they require money, so that can fall under economic. Or if they're opening organizations by bringing knowledge, that falls under the knowledge. Tourists bringing knowledge. I want more category of those 4 items or categories. I want the 5th category. In other words, when you receive tourists, مرة تانية, tourists, let me repeat, tourists bring you, they're not just a cash crop that bring economic benefit. We said 3 other things. They can bring you knowledge, and knowledge is diffusing in society and help in all these categories. Or they can bring you their time, and they can spend their time and they can volunteer, help start institutions or anything else. And they can also promote peace in their own countries, pressuring their own governments, whatever. And once we have peace, we have justice, we have equality, we have better gender or equality, we have less poverty, we have less hunger, we have decent work and economic growth when we don't have occupation. So those are the other 3 items besides economics that tourists can bring to us. Now I want just a 5th item. You cannot find another item? Think. What do tourists bring you? Have any of you ever received tourists at your house, for example? Or foreigners at your house? Have you ever hosted foreigners at your house?
Yes, I have.
What did they bring you? What did they bring you other than something material, a check or a gift?
Their culture.
Like gifts about peace or gifts from their own homeland that represent their culture and the things that's special about their countries, their ideas. Some of them they have.
That's knowledge. That falls under knowledge. All of this is knowledge.
Relation, maybe relation.
What else do they bring?
The language itself.
Okay, but that's
They
knowledge
talk
also.
different language
The
than
money.
ours.
The money.
We said يا عمي غير الأربعة اللي حكيناهم economic, knowledge, time, volunteerism, promoting peace. غير الأربع شغلات هذول ما they didn't bring you anything.
Some of them they brought some opportunities like exchanging between our country and their countries.
Okay, the exchange does what to you? Why do you need the exchange? What does the exchange bring?
Self-confidence.
Experience.
Experience is knowledge. If you give you information, that's knowledge. That falls under the knowledge.
Confidence.
Confidence. شو الconfidence هاي مش knowledge.
لا هي مش ناجبة. لما بيجي عندك السواح وانت بتتعامل معهم maybe بيصير عندك self confidence انك تتعامل وتسوي وتقيم.
So fifth category, that's not knowledge, not economic, not volunteerism, not promoting peace. It's psychological يا جماعة.
اللي هي الريليشن يعني انه ايش العلاقة معهم.
Confidence, friendship, community. This is not knowledge. This is something else, okay? This is another category. Okay? هلا بدي اجي على موضوع مهم جدا اللي هذا فتح لي اياه الموضوع لانه كثير من الافكار اللي انحكت طريقة الحكي كمان مهم لها علاقة بالinclusiveness واكسكلوسيفنس. Let me explain what I mean by that. بدي أول شيء تعرفوا لي طاولة. شو معنى طاولة؟ أنا بدي تعريف. إحنا كان في مشكلة بالتعريف سابقا مثلا إيكو توريزم ممكن الناس يختلفوا على تعريفه. أنا بدي أختار شيء بسيط جدا. I want you to just define to me what is a table. Can somebody define a table for me? What's a table? إذا أنا ما بفهمش اللغة الإنجليزية وبدي تفسروا لي شو كلمة table هاي شو هاي شو هذه table هل هو شو هو شخص ولا ايش تيبل طاولة شو الطاولة؟ حاولوا عرفوا
structure that made maybe of wood or metal مثلا.
Okay, a structure made of wood or metal. Continue.
We can use for putting things on, or for studying on, or maybe having food on sometimes.
طب إذا بعمل طاولة من إقزاز بطل طاولة؟
لا بصير بس for example from wood or metal, for example.
Can I add another definition for a table?
Yeah. You see, there's a problem because the definition you gave, I can give you 100 other kinds of tables that this definition doesn't apply to. This is called, the definition is not inclusive of all tables. So if I want to define something, it has to be inclusive of everything that any reasonable person would say a table. And there's not a chair, for example. To put things on, you can put things on a cabinet, for example. I can put things in a cabinet, or I can put it, for example, office desk. An office desk, is that a table or not a table?
Can we say a piece of furniture
Okay.
that we use to provide with a surface for eating, writing, and working, and so on? With a flat top, maybe.
So
with.
if I dissect what you just said, you gave a description, piece of furniture.
Yeah.
A description that fits within a larger category, which is furniture, because furniture includes also beds and chairs and other things.
But then we can add
wait, let me just dissect what you said حتى يفهم الناس. إنه it's a piece from some bigger category. Not all tables, but a bigger category than tables, اللي هو furniture. أثاث بيشمل كراسي وبيشمل مثلا تخت وغيره. A piece of furniture, which is good. It's a part of something bigger. Humans, for example, are animals, for example, that do blah blah. الجزء الثاني هو كان الجزء الثاني هو كان له علاقة بالفانكشن تبعتها يعني.
It's more specific.
الفانكشن، شو الفانكشن تبعت الطاولة حتى تحدديها أكثر يعني. أنا بس بحلل اللي قلتيه يعني. أنا ما بدي هلا نناقشه، أنا بدي أسأل سؤال ثاني. هل في رأيكم تعريف الشيء عبر وضعه كجزء من شيء أكبر وثم تحديده عن طريق الفانكشن تبعته، هل هذه طريقة مناسبة لتعريفه، ولا بتحبوا تزيدوا عليها ولا تنقصوا منها ولا إيش؟
أنا بعتقد لازم يكون التعريف ضمن مظلة كبيرة اللي هي the big umbrella، بعدين بيجي السبيسيفيك ديتيلز اللي بتكون أكثر تخصص على أساس الناس تأخذ الرؤية العامة أكثر، بعدين يفهموا المحتوى التفصيلي الصغير. هيك بفكر، مش عارف إذا صح.
أوكي. لا أنا مع هذا وبعرفش الآخرين يعني.
أنا برأيي كمان هذا الصح، لأنه مرات كثير يعني لما بدنا نعرف إشي معين ممكن الإشي مش معروف للشخص نفسه. يعني مثلا واحد ما بيعرف شو معنى إنسان على سبيل المثال، فلما أحط الإنسان بالكاتيجوري تبعته إنه هو مثلا كائن حي وكذا وكذا وكذا، وبعدين أخصص شوي شوي، بتصور بتكون الصورة أوضح.
Okay, if we all agree to that, do you all agree that this is a good way to approach defining something?
ممكن تضيف purpose.
Yeah, to go from general to the specific details, I think.
Okay, so if we all agree to that, And this is for objects like a table or a chair. By the way, it's not easy. يعني إذا بدي أحدد مثلا chair، هل مثلا حجر بقعد عليه الناس بصورة منتظمة هل هو chair ولا مش chair يعني. It's not a piece of furniture. A table could be a piece of stone that you put out.
Of something solid, we can say something solid.
يعني في مشاكل ببعض التعريفات، بديش أنا أعتبره التعريف اللي حكينا إنه فيش شيء 100%. جاسي. Or you can answer. Keep my phone and answer the phone. I'm in classes. Okay, if we agree to that for objects like a computer, like a table, like a chair, like a kettle or a glass, for example. Glass is an object you use to drink with or whatever, you know. Fine. You can see that you need to think of this definition, criteria of definition, also for concepts. Concepts يعني زي knowledge, زي ecotourism. These are not objects you can hold in your hand. ما بقدر أقول لكم أعطوني شكفة الecotourism يعني. You cannot feel it, touch it. It's a concept, right? So you need to define the concept also in similar ways, in similar criteria as you would do an object, or as you would do a human being or an animal. A rabbit is a mammal that has long ears, that hops around, etc. And it has 2 teeth on top, 2 teeth on the bottom. This becomes the definition of a rabbit or a hare. For concepts, you have to do the same thing. So when I said, for example, for tourists' contribution to our society fall under 5 categories. Like, for example, economic category, economic contribution. Immediately, you should think in your mind, what is economic contribution? What's the definition? And what fits under that? And if it fits under that, it's already under that. It cannot go under another category, okay? So you have to really think about things more at a deeper level, if you understand what I mean, than simply throw examples and they can go under any of the categories. No, it has to go under one of the categories. So when I say tourists bring economic benefit, okay, fine. What economic benefit are we talking about? So you have to start now listing them. For example, they buy souvenirs, they pay admissions, they go to a restaurant, contribute to the local economy. They may stay at a hotel, contribute to the local economy. They may give some money to a charity locally, like an NGO that needs some money. They can visit Bil'in, for example, and give some money to needy people in Bil'in. All of these things become included in this category. This is the idea of inclusiveness. Everything that's a table or reasonably is a table should fall under the definition of a table. This is the concept of inclusiveness in definitions. Now, I mentioned earlier 2 words, inclusive and exclusive. Exclusive means opposite. That whatever category I have, ecotourism, for example, as a definition, however I define it, must be inclusive of everything that you and I reasonably agree is ecotourism. But it should be exclusive of things that you and I reasonably conclude is not ecotourism. For example, a visit to the Church of Nativity cannot be considered ecotourism because, and then you fill up the lines, the rest of the line. So the definition of ecotourism should be inclusive of everything that's ecotourism, but exclusive of everything that's not ecotourism. if I talk about the economic contribution of tourists, it should include everything that possibly tourists contribute to our economy, everything, but it should be exclusive of things that they contribute that are not economic. As you mentioned, for example, psychological, self-confidence, for example, or promoting peace in their own country, that's not economic. So it's exclusive of those other categories. So when we talk about categories, from now on, please think about them this way, because it'll help you come up with more rational answers that put under rational categories than try and jump all over the place. يعني إذا بنضل تحت كاتيجوري واحد بنعبي فيه مش مشكلة، إذا كاتيجوري ثاني بنعبي فيه مش مشكلة. Okay, you understand what I'm trying to arrive at? As again, this is a principle in terms of the logic, and this applies to research. For example, if you're going to go do your research, and you say, I want to use both quantitative and qualitative research, okay? So you have to define what is quantitative and what's qualitative, and they have to be inclusive and exclusive. Inclusive for qualitative research, it includes everything that's qualitative, but it cannot include quantitative research, and vice versa. So any activity you perform in the field with the people you collect data from that is reasonably considered quantitative should fall under quantitative category, and if it's qualitative, it should fall under qualitative category. Okay, this is a Palestine Action for the Planet is a group that we started here. I put this because I like the word respect that's at the top there. Respect هو احترام لبيئتنا، احترام لأنفسنا، احترام لآخرين وغيرها، وهذا حكيت لكم إياه في المرة الماضية. قلت لكم إنه مثلا الethics issues are very important. You cannot be a good researcher if you are not ethical, or if you collect data in a cheating way, or if you plagiarize or whatever. I mean, it's but even if you throw a plastic bottle outside your car, in my humble opinion, you cannot be a good researcher, because ethics are general and they are relevant to everything. Now let's come to the actual nuts and bolts of research. And research may sound very difficult, may sound complicated at the beginning. Now we publish maybe 2 research papers out of our group here at the museum. Every month we publish 2 papers. It sounds like a lot, and many faculty at the university who's been at the university for many years, they don't have many publications, or they have 2 or 3 publications they did with their PhD thesis, the advisor or something. And they say, it's so hard to do research. I tell them it's not hard, sorry. It's one of the easiest things to do. And you actually do it daily in your life. You just have to expand it. Let me give you an example. If you have a broken circuit in your electricity in the car or something, electricity goes off, your neighbors have electricity, you have problem in your house. What do you do? What do you normally do, Yani?
I check the electricity machine. Maybe we have to pay money sometimes. Okay, so maybe I didn't pay my electric bill, so I check on that. Maybe or maybe there is a problem of in some place in the electricity at the house, which turn the electricity automatically. So maybe there's a problem, or maybe I have to do more. Maybe I made a short, basically, and all it takes is a switch, turn it up, and what else? And then I can go through the checklist. يعني مش مهم هلا نكمل, but I go through a checklist. In the end, when I give up on myself fixing the problem, لا هاي طلعت ولا هاي طلعت ولا هاي طلعت,
بروح بدي انادي الكتريشن فور اكزامبل، مش هيك شخص بيفهم بالكهرباء. طب منين بدي اجيب هذا رقم تلفون الشخص اللي بيفهم بالكهرباء؟ راندملي ولا مرات بعمل ريسيرش بدور عليه هذا الشخص؟
We do some research.
مرات بسأل مثلا ناس استعملوا آخرين، بتعرفوا كهربجي كويس مثلا، مش هيك؟ بعمل هاي الحركات. يعني بنهاية الأمر كل هاي every one of them that you mentioned and I mentioned are variables. The variable, did I pay my electric bill or not? This is a variable. So I check that variable, and that's scientific evidence. I did it or didn't do it, yes or no. And I go in the next line, a switch on or off, yes or no. And I go to the next one, yes or no. That's research, basically. It's research I do every single day of my life. And you guys do the same thing, whether it's even like if you have children, a child, for example, is sick. What do I do? Well, you know, some of my knowledge from the past, I can say, well, I know my mother used to check the temperature. So let's check the temperature. Has a fever, doesn't have a fever, sore throat, doesn't have a sore throat. How do they feel? What can I do? You start to investigate. This investigation, if you want, is basically research. And the word research, by the way, is made up of which means what?
إعادة العمل يعني to do again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And search,
to do again.
إعادة البحث. Okay. When we use these prefixes like if you understand what they mean and where they come from, like pre-proposal, for example, proposal even. Proposal, pro is before, and sal, which is in Latin, means the other thing, presenting, you know, basically. So if you understand these prefixes and suffixes, you actually expand your English very, very quickly, by the way. Those of you, somebody said their background is English, so they're better than me probably in this. But I found when I was learning English that a lot of them are from Latin or Greek roots. And if I know where it comes from, it becomes easy. For example, com is from together. And if you say combine, combination, communicate, community, compose, compensate, all of these things have the prefix com, which is, you know, which comes from this bringing together, if you want. So combination, for example, binary, if you want, like binary, bringing two things together, you combine them together, okay? So this way you can quickly expand your English and Latin and Greek vocabulary in this thing. And there's a web link I put there, etymology online. You can look at it to find more about this. In the sciences and the social sciences, this is very, very helpful. You know, when you talk even in psychology and you talk about social behaviors, you know, we talk about imprinting, for example, that the baby imprints on the mother. We talk about many things like this. And yeah, so so basically, if you get this, simplify things much more, you can certainly create a lot of knowledge that would be very useful. The second hint I want to give you to help you is to find information of relevance. And when I wrote this, and I looked at it, I said, really, I want to tell them this? Don't they already know this? But then I think to myself, sometimes I forget this rule. This is a very, very important rule. And لما حكينا على الكهرباء, find information of relevance. Information of relevance is a switch up or down. Is it في short ولا ما في short? Did I pay my electric bill or I didn't pay my electric bill? This is information of relevance. Sometimes it seems بديهي يعني common sense, right? But it's actually very, very important in research. If I want to know about gender equality in Palestine, first rule is find information of relevance to gender equality in Palestine, right? Seems logical, but you would be surprised at how many people ignore this first rule, and they would go to what? Instead, they jump immediately, which we talked about last Saturday. بنطوا بيعملوا ايش؟ بدل ما يجيبوا المعلومات شو بيسووا؟ What do they do? Unmute and say one word.
Maybe they see similar research about the subject.
They categorize it.
بحفظوها.
No, but I mean, if you ask them about ecotourism, for example, or about gender equality, instead of following that first rule and going to find the information about what do they do?
They start to write without reading, maybe.
They start to opinionate, right? And pontificate بنسميها يعني كيف البونتيفيكيت هاي زي البابا بيجي بعطينا محاضرة أو صلاة. They give their opinion. They don't necessarily give, of course, their opinion may be based on previous information that they had in their mind, مش هيك؟ بس بغض النظر, they don't go to find information of relevance that's current. هلا ليش مهم that's current؟ لأنه ممكن أن يكون عندي معلومات قديمة وتغيرت الأمور. مثلا ممكن أقول المنطقة هاي فيها تفريق ضد النساء وشغلات زي هيك، بجوز هاي مبنية على معلومات قبل 10 سنين وبجوز تغيرت كليا وبجوز ما تغيرت، بس ما عنديش أنا المعلومات هاي الجديدة ولازم أجيبها، فلازم أجيب المعلومات. Sorry to emphasize this even though it's بديهي, بس I find it, and even in the discussion here, perhaps starting today, one of the things you can do is we can decide to do homework or to look up information. And every one of you has internet, obviously, so you can look up information as I speak, as we speak. Sometimes I would be doing, I tell you how I operate. Sometimes I would have a meeting with like about the grant or something. And as they are speaking, I look up words or I look up the most recent information about something. And I say, well, according to what I just looked up, it's this and that. This is very important because it gains you also a lot of respect that you are not just giving opinions, you are looking up information. And so that's the first rule. And the second rule is to actually bring that information. And that comes from reading. Reading is a skill they don't teach us in school. And I am hoping, I don't have time, there's actually courses given at major universities in reading, literally. They say, like course 451 is a course in reading. They teach you how to read, whether reading in social sciences or reading in sciences or whatever. They don't teach us how to read. They basically teach us how to regurgitate information, but that's not reading. And we will do the exercise now, and I'll show you what I mean by this in a minute here, which is the answer to the question of how do I read? Not what I read, but how do I read? What I read is one thing. How do I read is a very, very different thing. Once you are comfortable in this, you actually stop even reading sentences and reading words. You start to read meanings more than words and sentences, and you can read much faster when you do meanings. And we'll show you this with the example that I sent to you. But we also have to have other skills as we read, which includes critical thinking, problem solving, analysis, critiquing what you read, etc. Let's do the example now. And here I want to open the paper that you guys did your homework on. الكل ودالي الhomework, right?
Yeah, أنا بعتت.
Okay. Oh, come on. You want to open this file? Okay. يلا, open. Okay, can you all see this paper?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
We can see it.
So generally, this is what's called the journal article. It's published in Annals of Tourism Research, volume 49, year 2014, pages 174 to 189. Okay. What is this? Oops. ليش؟ بعدين مش عارف ليش PDF ما بيشتغل عندي.
You can check it from your email. I think by email it open in the Explorer.
Okay, that's a good idea. وين؟
I'll send I think. Send email. Okay.
sent email. طيب بس ما أنا عندي 100 إيميل سنت بدي أخذ بحث فيهم ما بنفع.
I think it's the first one.
No, it's not. Oh, I know because I sent it to you from here. No. في لينك على الويب سايت أنا وديت لكم إياه، حدا يودي لي إياه.
Okay.
ودي لي إياه as an email. طب من ما يصلني هذا وافتحه وانتم بتقدروا تفتحوا عندكم تطلعوا عليه.
بعت لك دكتور، بعت لك ايميل من جديد فورورد للايميل اللي انت بعته.
اوكي. طيب الجورنال هذا
ايوه الواحد. افتح اللي فوق عند ايوه هذا هو على الشمال.
اوكي. هلا هذا في زي ما انتم شايفين في touristification of conflict zone the case of بلعين. This is what's called what? هذه الجملة شو بنسميها؟ الفوق هاي touristification of a conflict zone the case of بلعين.
title.
طب ايش؟
This is the title of the report.
وهدول شو هم؟ يعني
The author.
authors. بعدين في تحت abstract وبعدين في introduction مش هيك؟
Yep.
طيب. Let's talk about these categories of the paper. What's the function of a title?
To give general information about what is the article about talking about.
Okay, general information about what the article is talking about. Here there is a title and a subtitle. One, the title is Touristification of a Conflict Zone. And the second one that says the case of Belain. Obviously they're connected. But the question is, if it's just giving general information, I could say, for example, tourism in Belain. That's general information about the paper, tourism in Belain, or political tourism in Belain. Is that a good title or a bad title? How do I decide what's a good title, what's a bad title? If the title is just to give a glimpse of what the paper, what the subject of the paper is, the title, the function is actually
The title should have specific keywords that helps us know what's coming in the research. Like touristification, it's very specific term.
Okay.
And especially in Belain.
بيساعد التايتل بيساعد في ايش؟ لما بيجي قارئ بدور على بيبر، شو بيساعده التايتل؟
بيساعده يفهم
يلاقي البيبر،
انه يلاقي المعلومات اللي هو بدور عليها.
طب اذا بلاقيها بالتايتل معناته ليش يقرا البيبر؟ خلص بكفي.
لا بلاقي يعني القصد بلاقي البيبر نفسها لما يدور.
لما يحط
like a keyword عشان انت تحط شيء
keyword.
يكون يعني it's a keyword.
صح.
يعني لما انا ادور على الانترنت ويكون التايتل واضح، يعني بتكون اسهل اني الاقي الارتكل اللي بدي اياها.
Okay.
It's like a hint, like a puzzle.
It's a statement. It's not a question. It's a statement.
But if you, how many of you read newspapers? Do you read newspapers? I used to read them a long time ago.
We used to read it.
Yes, we used to read it.
Then we had Facebook.
Now we have Facebook. Facebook doesn't have titles, so it's a problem. But newspapers, there's article titles. If I'm reading a newspaper, a typical newspaper is, let's say, 8 to 20 pages. It has about 200 articles, right? And I'm going through this newspaper to read the newspaper. I don't read every single article, right?
I read what attracts me only.
I look at the titles, Mishek.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Why do I look at the title? As a reader, forget the writer, what they intend or don't intend. Why do I look at the title?
ملفت. It's obvious يعني بيكون دائما title it's يعني واضح.
That attracts the people.
أنا كمازن, why do I look at the title when I have 200 titles, 200 articles?
According to my interest.
You don't have all the time just to read. You just do scanning.
To do what? To benefit from what?
I need special information according to my interests and needs. That's why I search for information.
So I read all the articles?
No, I will read special articles related to my interests and needs.
So I read the titles so that I do what, as Mazen?
To get information.
So that I can
find
information.
يعني findability. Yani findability of what you want.
Sorry, in the
Through the
newspaper. No. In the newspaper, I found all the articles. I looked at all the titles.
To see if you
I
are
read the title so that I do what? Not to find the title. I already found the title. But why do I read the title?
to see if I'm interested.
I يخلف عليكم to choose to see if I'm interested in this subject or not interested, right? If I choose based on the title, right? If I choose based on the title, and this is the primary function of the title. The primary function of the title is to help the reader choose your article, to read it or not to read it. If that's the primary function, is to choose, then I go back to the issue, what's a good title and what's a bad title? A good title is one that helps you what? That makes you choose the article, Mishek, to read. If the title is boring and it doesn't help me choose the article may be full of gold, and I don't know that. How would I know that? So the title should be a way, a lead into my paper. Title of your thesis should be a way that makes people want to read your thesis. If it does not make people want to read your thesis, sorry, the title is not about searching or finding, because searching, there's keywords you can search also. It is not the function of a title. The function of a title is to ensure that somebody who looks at that title, who actually sees the title, chooses to read your paper, okay? This is the primary function of a title, whether it's a thesis, research paper, or book. When you go to a bookstore and you look at the books, you're not going to sit down and read every book in the bookstore. But if you see an intriguing title, something that catches your interest, then you open it and start fiddling and start to understand, right? So the title has to be something that draws your attention. So I go back to this title. Is it something that is going to entice me to read more? If it's yes, why? And if it's no, why not? Yeah. What do you think? Is it a good title?
If it's a good title, if you are interested,
I think it's a good title, yes.
Political.
Yeah. So why do you say it's a good title? Let's hear that. That's good. Okay. I mean, there are not many words.
For me,
There are.
I think
There are
it's a good title because it's attraction. Yani, the title itself, it attracts me. You know, how can we have tourism in a conflict zone? For me, as a Palestinian, yani, it attracts me with this, especially the word conflict zone. Usually, when we want to do when we want to go for to do tourism, we go to a place to have a safe and so. But how can we have a tourist with a conflict zone? This attracts me a lot.
Okay, good. So
for
basically,
me,
in those 10 words that he has there, and actually 10 words, some of them are not needed, the and da and of, whatever, but I mean, there are 3 keywords: touristification, conflict, and bil'een. Bil'een is the example. Those are the 3 keywords. You can make a title using those 3 words, a different title, but still convey the same interest that you talked about. For example, I can say touristification, conflict zone touristification in Bil'een, for example, or something like that. But saying, you know, something more general would not be intriguing. If I talk about, for example, demonstrations in Bil'een, attracting tourists, whatever, it becomes more general. Okay, so we agree that this title is intriguing. It's not answering my questions. It's not telling me the results. It is not summarizing the work. It is just a teaser title like Abu Mazen issues a declaration extending emergency. That's a title, you know. It's if you're interested, you can read more. You can read the detail, and you can find out more. Then the second category, after the authors, of course, is abstract. Again, what's the function of an abstract? What's the definition? If I was to say abstract or summary, sometimes you see the word. What is the point of an abstract? What is the abstract intended to do? Intended to do, not what the writer is doing. I don't care what the writer is doing. We will care, of course, because we are going to be writers. But but my point here as readers, forget the writers, as readers, what is the abstract supposed to do to me as a reader?
I think the abstract should give me a very general and clear idea about the theory and the results, the literature review, all the parts of the research. It should give a clear idea and a very general one.
Okay.
If I read abstract, I should say, are these information important for me to continue reading the research, or should I stop here? Is it relevant or irrelevant to me?
Perfect. And many, many times, by the way, I read the title of a paper and I stop and I throw it away.
Yeah.
Just like I did with the newspaper when I looked at 200 titles and I found 3 of them that I want to read and I started reading those. That is, the other titles are of no significance to me. I'm not interested in them. The abstract is a little bit more, but as you said, it gives me the notion of whether I want to continue or not. And I can just read the abstract and even use it, by the way. I can use the paper without reading the rest of it from the abstract. Actually, if it is a good paper, generally I find that the abstract is sufficient for me to even cite the paper, cite it in my research. For example, if in the abstract the person makes a conclusion about a specific thing, you know, for example, here we conclude the last sentence in the abstract. We conclude that different actors are involved in constructing and staging the events as authentic experience, and that in so doing, they generate a suitable platform for the performance of political tourism. I can say, according to Bill Hassan and et al., you know, the case of Belaine shows that you can develop political tourism in a way that's effective. And I use this by reading the abstract without, and even reading, I didn't read the whole abstract, by the way. I jumped and I read the last sentence because sometimes the last sentence of a paragraph or of the abstract is the most important sentence. And we'll come back to this issue of paragraph structure and all of this stuff when we talk about writing. But reading also is important to realize where the important information might be found. So here you can decide, okay, from this paper, I would like to just read the abstract, and that's good enough for me, and I cite it in my thesis or in my research, and I move on. It's not very important for me to delve in detail on it. Or I can decide, hey, this is very, very fascinating. Let me read more. And if you say that based on the title and based on the abstract, you go to the introduction, okay? And you start reading the introduction. Intro means beginning, induction, deduction, if you remember, we talked about those. So what is introduction about? What is to introduce a subject?
What was the question? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
The third section in the paper is basically an introduction. So what is the introduction about? What's supposed to do? why do we have an introduction? ليش ما احط لهم انا خلص ادخل واعطيهم الريزلتس والميثودز والشغلات
The
هاي.
introduction will be talking about a summary.
No, you have to get the reader ready and
For what you are going to talk about.
you have the reader must have a background about what he's gonna read more, about the environment, the circumstances, history maybe, or something like that. So to get him familiar of what you are talking about.
Maybe the introduction can start with the general information more and why the reason to start to write about this topic, maybe.
Then you go specifically.
Actually, that last sentence you said is the most important sentence. You are selling your article. You are trying to show the reader why you engaged in this research. What's the point of this research? I'm doing the research because I just think it's important and you guys have to believe me that it's important. No, you have to convince them that it is important research. To convince them that it's important research, you need to introduce your research and build upon previous research, literature review, argument that justifies you doing this work. Why are you doing this work, basically, has to be answered in the introduction. Why are you doing this research? Not how are you doing it or what your result was, any of this stuff. The why has to be the most important thing. And here I want to bring up the issue of the W's, the questions. Always ask yourself questions. In reading articles, in writing, always ask yourself the basic questions. The basic questions always asked start with the usual preface to the question. Why, what, where, when, and how, right? So, for example, here I can ask the question, why did this author do this research in Bil'ain? Where did he do it? He did it in Bil'ain. Why did he do it in Bil'ain? That's a question. Why didn't he do it somewhere else? This is the kind of questions that you have to start asking yourself to be a critical reader, but also a critical writer. For the introduction, the basic questions I ask myself for the author is, why the hell did you do this study? Why not? There's thousands of other studies you could have done. Explain to me why you did this study. And if you explained it to me logically in the introduction, and I'm satisfied by that, then I'm likely to go and look at your results. If in the introduction, you introduce the topic to me, which the title of the abstract showed is interesting, but you didn't convince me of the need for this research, then why should I continue reading? Okay, it was interesting. Bil'ain is interesting to me, but in the introduction, you have to justify why you are doing this research.
More specific.
Right. So, and here you must build on what? Hint in front of you. You must build as an author, if you're writing an introduction to a thesis or whatever, you must build
on previous studies.
studies. Right, hence reading previous studies. If we note here, for example, though not much information is available in the literature, طب كيف عرف not much information is available in the literature? راحوا بحبشوا, okay? So, but then he starts to cite some references. كل واحد من هذول مرجع. كان سيكينج, 1998, بيانكي and ستيفنسون, ميشيلاتي, هذول كلهم راجعهم درسهم وبيحكوا مثلا هذا هي Clark and Brin, they talk about political tourism and they discuss basically a mini literature review here. Mini literature review leads you to the next.
يعني أظني كمان لازم على أساس إنه to acknowledge the work of other people ولا لا؟
Right.
يعني you have to mention them in your study as a way to acknowledge there are other researchers before you who tackled this issue or who researched this issue or whatever.
I mean, that's
And I think
professional courtesy, yes, but
it is
it's not a
ethical.
matter of, yeah, it's not a matter of just ethics and professional courtesy. It is a way to justify to the reader that there is a body of literature that leads me to the need for the study. Yani, the body of literature leads you to understand the need for this work. If the body of literature does not lead you to show that this work is needed, وانه كل الشغل اللي انعمل سابقا، طب انا ليش اكتب ريسيرش؟ خلص ما في حاجه ريسيرش. I can write a review article and I can say هاي معلومات السابقه على الموضوع البوليتيكال توريزم. فالفكره مش بس انه اعطي كريدتس لهم، الفكره انه استعملهم كاداه حتى ايش؟ حتى اورجي اهميه بحثي اللي بدي احكي لكم عنه كمان شويه بالmaterials and methods وبالresults وبالdiscussion. So it's selling your product, selling your thesis, selling your research. It's very, very critical, by the way. And you have to sell it. So this is why you have to sell it. Now, this is as far as the introduction is concerned. And then there are other subjects. أنا بدي أوقف هنا على structure ونرجع لبقية السكشنز والأمور زي هاي في papers ثانية. بس بدي إياكم هلا بما إنه we have to learn to read because they don't teach us to read. I want to pick randomly. It doesn't matter which paragraph we start with. We can start with the first paragraph or the second one. Which do you choose? أنتوا اختاروا أو الثالثة. I want to pick a paragraph, just a paragraph. مين بتحبوا نبدأ فيها؟ Just to learn to read it. Read to understand. Anybody, pick a paragraph. الأولى ولا الثانية ولا الثالثة؟ سامعيني؟
خلينا نبلش في الأولى، ليش لا؟ With the first, I think the first one.
أوكي نبلش في الأولى. بدي إياكم أنتوا هلا تقروها يعني بخلال منعطيكم 4-5 دقائق تقروها وتقولوا لي شو الفكرة الرئيسية من الباراجراف، مش شو كتب في الباراجراف. أنا ما بيهمني شو اللي كتب بقدر أقراه، هي موجود قدامي. فشو الفكرة الرئيسية اللي هو بده يعني أنا كقارئ أخذ منها، شو بده يبيعني يعني. Okay, so read that first paragraph and tell me what's the main message here of this paragraph. مرات you have to read between the lines to find the message, especially if it's a bad writer. This one is a mediocre writer, يعني نص أنا بعتبره هذا. بعتبرهم 3 هذول. خلاص قريتوها؟
It's talking about the media, something about the media here.
Again,
How it make it the word global village.
Again, listen to my question carefully. I don't want you to tell me what the paragraph is talking about. I can tell you what it's talking about right there in the paragraph. It says it's talking about globalization, blah, 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 media, blah, blah, blah. أنا سؤالي واضح. What do you think the author wanted you, the reader, to conceptualize from this paragraph? شو اللي بده يعني شو بده يبيعني أنا؟ شو الفكرة اللي بده يبيع لي إياها من الفقرة الأولى؟ مش شو كلي في الفقرة الأولى، طبعا كلي عن الميديا وكلي عن هذا وكلي عن هذاك، لكن شو الفكرة الرئيسية اللي بده إياني منها؟ اللي بده أنا كقارئ أطلع فيها.
Importance of globalization.
No. المين idea إنه التورستس can participate in the comparative disclosure in the manner that is always available to them in daily life. لأنه لخص معظم الفقرة لخصها بآخر جملة.
To visit.
يعني الهدف تبع الفقرة كلها أنا بصراحة شفته في آخر جملة حكاها.
Okay, everybody agrees with him or disagree with him, or by the way, it's please mute if you're not talking. If I can read a paragraph and you can read a paragraph, and we can, especially if it's a poor writing, this is not a particular poor writing, this is fairly good. But if it's a poor writing, we can all get different ideas from the paragraph. So it is not necessarily right or wrong يعني. بس أنا بدي أسمع الفكرة اللي هو حكى إنه معظم يعني the basic idea he wants to push, the author wants to push, is basically summarized in that last sentence. And it's basically about how international and globalism, cosmopolitan discourse is the same as globalism, helps in daily life, and tourists can participate in this. This is what you understood as the basic idea of this paragraph. I want to hear other people agree or disagree, or they have other ideas. You agree, you disagree, silence is agreement.
I kind of agree, but in the middle of the paragraph, he talked about the problems that they could have and the solutions. But maybe it's also how they participate in the cosmopolitan discourse. So I think it's very near, but he forget to mention in the end the way they participate in the cosmopolitan discourse.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so in general, everybody generally agrees, right? إذا في معارضة يعني.
Also, we have why they are participating in something like this.
But that's not discussed in this paragraph. ماليش فيها. أنا بطلع على الباراجراف بدي أفهم شو اللي بده إياني بده مني هذا الكاتب. الفقرة الأولى شو اللي بده مني أنا كقارئ. اللي بده مني هي موجود في آخر جملة. البقية هي تحضير لآخر جملة. Structure تبع الباراجراف generally starts more general and goes to specific. And when you write your thesis, always remember this rule. Don't start with specific in a paragraph. Starts with the general and go to the specific. الفقرات هي زي storytelling. You start to write as if you are telling a story. بدك تصل للب الموضوع، لب الموضوع بتصل له بالآخر، بتحضر له عبر الفقرة الأولى، عبر الجمل الأولى. So sentences in any text within the paragraph and also within the whole text. the order of paragraphs. هلا أعطيكم كمثال يعني. أول شيء الباراجراف نفسها لما نرجع لفوق ونطلع على شو البداية تبعتها. البداية تبعتها are very general, right? Talks about process globalization. Globalization هذا موضوع كبير بيشتغل على كل الأشياء زي ما أنتم شايفين welfare, environmentalism, etc. etc. هلا بعدين نزل شوية شوية خصص من الجلوباليزيشن جزئية لها علاقة بالتوريزم وبعدين حكى اللي بده يحكي فهو بدأ general بعدين راح للspecific. This is within a paragraph. But also when you have a number of paragraphs, they also should follow the same pattern. The first paragraph should be the general one, second paragraph a bit more specific, third paragraph even more specific, fourth paragraph is even more specific, okay? So if you look at the second paragraph here, without reading it again, بلش يحكي more specifics باستعمال مراجع. بس هاي to build the argument اللي يصل لل third paragraph which is starts with the word this paper. Now I want you to give you a trick. Please pay attention لأنه هذا مهمة جدا وبتوفر عليكم وقت كثير. I'll start with an example. When I first took a course in the US, the first course I took a course was about the history of science. Professor Green was his name. He's long dead now. This is 1980. He came the first week and the first lecture he said, here, there's these three articles which I like you to read and report to me in the next lecture, which is in 2 days. يعني كان الاجتماع هو 3 وخميس. فمعانا بين الثلاثة ويوم الخميس نقرأ 3 papers ونعمل عليهم تقرير. So I was like, I came to him, I said, you know, you expect me to read 3 papers and write reports on them in 2 days? This is virtually impossible. He says it's going to get worse. Next assignment is for you to read a book and 2 articles, and you have to do it. This is just the requirement. I said, I can't do it. It's physically impossible. He said, go to the library. At the time, there's no internet. He said, there are books about speed reading. Read a book about speed reading, how to read faster. I said, now you want me to read a book about speed reading so that I can read 2 articles so that I can submit them by Thursday? He said, yes. I said, okay, I will try. And I didn't sleep for 2 nights, of course. I did read the speed reading book, and I taught myself to do speed reading so that I can read faster, so that I can do what he asked me to do, okay? And it turned out not that difficult, by the way. By the end of the course, I was able to read like 2 books in a week and several articles and write reports about them by the end of that course. Now, I will give you the tricks. أنا بدي أسهلها عليكم، بديش إياكم تروح تقروا عن speed reading. But of course I encourage it. يعني هلا حاليا عندكم أنتم الأمور أبسط كثير. أنا كنت أروح على المكتبة وشغلات زي هيك. Now you put the word speed reading on YouTube, you'll get a video about how you can do speed reading. You can read faster. But I'll give you a few hints. When I read this paper, for example, it took me 2 minutes to read it. Okay, literally 2 minutes to read it. Why? Because I do not read sentences. I do not read words. I look at substance. I look at key areas. The key areas, which we started with the title, right? The title, it took me 10 seconds to read the title. Then I look at the abstract. And the abstract, by the way, I looked at the last sentence only. I didn't look at the rest of the abstract. In the introduction, the first paragraph, I did what you just did, chose that last sentence, but I skipped all the other sentences. I didn't read them. Why? Because if I want to read them, I can go back and read them if I want the detail. بس كمان أنا عودت حالي إنه أطلع على وسط الصفحة مش على الأطراف. أنا ما بقرأ الأطراف. مثلا في وسط الصفحة تلاحظوا كلمة consciousness, cosmopolitan consciousness next to Beck. I did notice those two words. And then by reading the last sentence, I understood the gist of that paragraph. فبصير أقرأ أنا بسرعة وأطلع النتيجة اللي بدي إياها المتوخاة من القراءة in a much faster way to understand what I am looking at. But you can teach yourself other tricks of reading, speed reading. But the point of speed reading, by the way, is precisely not to focus on the text. وإنه كلمة بكلمة بدي أقرأ فيهم أفهم كل كلمة، لا. هذا اللي بعلمونا إياه بالمدارس اللي هو قراءة للبصم ولا الإعادة ولا القرقرة. إحنا بدنا نفهم أنا شو بده مني الكاتب هذا، شو الفكرة اللي بده يوصل لي إياها. بما إنه هذا هدفي مش ضروري أقرأ كل شيء، أنا ممكن أنا بس حتى الأبستراكت تكفي وصل لي الفكرة. مثلا إذا صحيح إذا هو أهبل بعرفش يوصل الفكرة، لا بديش أنا القراءة، خلينا نروح في مراجع تانية بدور عليها بلاقيها. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I have a question, please.
Yeah.
If we don't have an abstract in the research, what should we do? Should we look at the introduction only? Is it enough?
No, I don't even go to the introduction. I go to the last paragraph of the discussion. And the last paragraph of the discussion, they should sum up what they have found, the significance of what they have found, and they should also sum up what additional work is needed in the area that they talk about. For example, they may say, my paper, while showing blah, 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 needs additional work in this area, and this XXX, for example. So that's what I would spend a bit of time in the last paragraph of the discussion, which again, if they follow the rules, which they should as a writer, and we're talking about reputable journals anyway, they won't let them publish garbage, so they would look at these things. If they follow the rules, the paragraph should be arranged, and within each paragraph, again, going from general to specific, the last sentence is the most important sentence. Paragraphs, if you have 10 paragraphs, the last paragraph in a story-like fashion will tell you إنه يعني زي ما كانت ستي تحكي لنا قصة الغولة، نهاية الأمر الغولة أكلت البنت ولا ما أكلتهاش، هذا لب الموضوع يعني. Okay, so I'm just giving you things that will help you also in other courses and other future work. Reading books, I now read books regularly. I mean, I have just yesterday I finished 2 books very quickly for the gist of what they were about. In 2 days I had read those 2 books. Anyways, that's what my suggestion on this, and I think maybe now we need a break for a few minutes. So do you have any other questions before we continue? Before we take the break? Okay, if not, I'm going to stop the recording and go on a break and resume the recording later. Where is the stop recording? You are presenting, you are here. Stop recording, okay.
دكتور تحطش ستوب، حط
Okay.
بوز.
How do you
لأنه
pause?
الستوب
فيش pause، في stop recording، فيش pause.
هو المشكلة أظن إذا حطيت ستوب ريكوردينج بصير 2 شو حدا.
يا بهمش.